Hey, welcome to Mooney Reads. My name is Beck, and today I'm going to be doing the Sapphic Book Tag. This tag was created by Teresa from A Reading Elf, so I'll put her video in the description. Each question is based off of a book with a Sapphic character. Unfortunately, I don't think that I've read any of the books that are represented in the tags. However, all of the books that I will be suggesting as an answer to each of these are Sapphic, and I have read. So hopefully that redeems me in some sort of way. And the point of the Sapphic Book Tag is to spread the word about various books that have women who love women. I am all about some gay literature, so I thought this would be a really good tag for me to do. So I'll go ahead and jump right in. The first prompt is CRIER'S WAR, a book with the enemies to lovers trope. And for this, I have Road Queen and Eternal Trip to Love. In this book, we have our main character, Leo, who is a motorcycle racing lesbian. She is described by many others as a lesbian fuckboy. Her groove is thrown off when Vega comes around and steals her motorcycle. In order to get her motorcycle back, Leo must prove that she can be a decent lesbian. So we have enemies to lovers, we have fake dating. It's beautiful. The next question is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, a book about a celebrity, real or fictional. For this question, I have two books, and they're both nonfiction. First, I have Fun Home by Alison Bechdel. Alison Bechdel is known for a number of different things, including her writing, and she's also well known for coining the Bechdel test, which is basically where, in order to pass the Bechdel test, the film has to have two women who talk to each other about something other than men. So I would say that Alison Bechdel is well known enough to fulfill this prompt. And her memoir, Fun Home, is about her as well as her dad, both the relationship that she has with him, and it also goes into her father's secret life and the fact that he was attracted to men and having relationships with men. But she doesn't know this about her dad until after he's passed away. So there are a lot of different themes in here about grief, family, identity. It's a really great book, and this is a graphic memoir. So it's set up like a comic book, but this has more text in it, I think, than the other graphic memoirs that I've read. It's a really great read. I definitely recommend it. The other book that I have for this prompt is When They Call You a Terrorist by Patrice Concolors and Asha Bendele. Patrice Concolors is one of the founders of the Black Lives Matter movement, which is why I chose this book. This is her memoir looking at basically her experiences as a Black woman and growing up in a Black community, especially in a state that had stop and frisk laws that really heavily impacted her brothers and the men around her as well as her. This is a really, really wonderful read. This is probably the best nonfiction that I've picked up all year so far. Next, we have Girls of Paper and Fire, a book with Asian representation. And I think a lot of the books that I actually ended up picking for this ended up having Asian representation. However, the one that I picked for this prompt specifically is Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me by Mariko Tamaki and Rosemary Valerie O'Connor. Mariko Tamaki is part Japanese, and I believe the main character is as well. I don't think that it's said explicitly in the book, but I know that she is supposed to be Asian. But this is a fantastic book. I've read it twice already this year. It focuses in on Freddie, who is in love with this girl, Laura Dean. But Laura Dean is not exactly the best person. She kind of comes to Freddie when she wants to, kind of breaks up on a whim, cheats on her. So it's kind of a toxic situation, and the whole book is about how these sorts of toxic situations can impact your life on multiple levels, and it can impact your friends. So as much as this book is about this relationship, it's also very much about the friendship, particularly with the main character's best friend, Doodle, who, it's not explicitly said in the text that Doodle is non-binary, but there's no way that Doodle isn't non-binary with a lot of the different cues that you get and the things going on with their name and pronouns. I really love this. I know there are some people who don't really like it that much, but it might be because this is very character heavy. So if you're looking for something with a super intriguing plot or something, this isn't the book for you. But as a character and theme person, this book hit me right in the heart. This is one of those books that I desperately wish that I had as a teenager, or even like earlier on as an adult, like before this year. It has some really important stuff in it. So this is one that I cannot recommend enough. Next we have These Witches Don't Burn, a book with magic. The book that I chose for this prompt is Mooncakes. This is an adorable, magical standalone novel. The main character, Nova, is a witch, and in the book it talks about the fact that she has had crushes on people of multiple genders, so she is the Sapphic representation that we have in this book. This focuses on her as well as Tam, who is a non-binary werewolf. They have to figure out what is happening in order to stop some dark magic that's happening. On top of our queer main characters, we also have a female-female relationship with Nova's grandmothers, so I also love that there is that older Sapphic representation as well. This is one of the cutest graphic novels that I've read all year. I definitely recommend it if you can get your hands on a copy. Next we have This Is How You Lose the Time War, a book with star-crossed lovers. And for this, I wasn't really sure how far star-crossed lovers went, because I don't think that I've read any Sapphic books with like Romeo and Juliet level, like you're not allowed to see each other. But I thought about it a little bit and I decided to pick a book that had a couple that had some sort of issues thrown in their way that prevented them from talking about their feelings or something like that. So I chose The Henna Wars by Adiba Jaregar. The main character, Nishat, ends up finding one of her elementary school friends, Flavia, at a wedding, and it turns out she definitely has feelings for her. After this happens, she also finds out that Flavia is going to be going at her school next year, and while this might seem like a really great thing, there are a few obstacles to overcome. Nishat needs to come out to her family. Just as well, there ends up being this competitive project going on in school, so Flavia and Nishat end up going head-to-head in a way. This book hits on a lot of really important things. It's not just a cute romance. It does talk a lot about coming out and the role that religion can play in it, specifically as somebody coming from a Muslim household. It also talks a decent bit about cultural appropriation, and it is one of the few books that actually says the identity labels on the page. Nishat is a lesbian and Flavia is bisexual. Next we have Wilder Girls, a book that you would take with you if you were stranded on a deserted island. And this prompt was really hard just because, first of all, I can't see being stranded on a deserted island. Second of all, I cannot see choosing only one book. If anything, I would bring my Kindle and one of those solar chargers. However, that's kind of a cop-out and not really an answer. So the Sapphic book that I chose to take on a deserted island with me is Fragments of Sappho. For those who don't know about Sappho, she's like the original lesbian. Not literally, but she wrote poetry around the 500s BC and was really well known. Sappho is where Sapphic comes from. Sappho is also where lesbian comes from because Sappho came from the island of Lesbos. But this is a collection of all of the pieces of poetry that they could find. Now, the thing with the majority of her poetry is that some of them only come in pieces. So a lot of the paper that she used was damaged throughout time. It's, been a little while since 500 BC. And the thing with this translation of her work is that when there are pieces that have been damaged, they show you where they were damaged. So here's an example. The brackets show some of the places where a text was missing. Some people might think, why would you want an incomplete poetry book with you? But the thing with this is that there is so much that you can take from so many of these. You can interpret them in so many different ways. So I think that these would spark creativity and be more interesting than just a regular book. But also, even though there are only pieces of poetry, there is so much emotion still packed in. Because of what you can see and because of what you can't see. There's a particular type of yearning to Sappho's poetry that's both intentional and unintentional and very, very gay. You need to properly yearn if you're going to be totally by yourself, so this would be good to bring on a deserted island. The next prompt is The Miseducation of Cameron Post, a book-to-screen adaptation. This one was a little bit hard just because there aren't a lot of books that are Sapphic that have been made into movies. Like, I was trying to sit down and think about it, and, I could have maybe used Fun Home because it was turned into a musical. Yeah, that's about it. I think I have 2 unread books that I know of that I could have potentially used. One of them is A Miseducation of Cameron Post, which is what the prompt is named after, so I wouldn't use that one. And then for the other one, I could maybe technically use Rita Mae Brown's memoir, because Rita Mae Brown wrote screenplays. But I haven't read that, and I think that would be fudging the prompt a little bit. So the only one that I could think of is the Kase-san and Morning Glory series. I have not seen the anime adaptation of this, but I really want to. I've talked about this series before. This is a shoujo manga that focuses in on our two main characters, Yamada and Kase-san. They are high schoolers who end up falling in love. Kase-san is kind of already established that she is a lesbian, and then Yamada, towards the beginning, has to figure out herself and I guess be okay with the fact that she is having a crush on this girl. This is a really pure series. One of the things that I was worried about going into kind of like Yuri manga is that I really didn't want stuff that was hypersexualized, especially considering the setting. But this is really sweet and well done. But if you're looking for a sapphic series that's just really pure and wholesome, I definitely recommend the Kase-san and series. Next we have How to Make a Wish, an upcoming release you wish you had. And for that, I'm going to direct you again to the Kase-san and series. The second volume of Kase-san and Yamada doesn't come out until May 2021. I knew that it wasn't going to come out for a minute, but I looked this up when I was preparing this last night, and I was just really sad that I was going to have to wait that long for it. The numbering on these is maybe a little bit weird. Even though it's called Kase-san and Yamada Volume 2, it's actually Volume 7 of the Kase-san and series. So the first 5 books in the series are named after different things. You have Kase-san and Morning Glories as the first one, Kase-san and Bento as the second, and so on and so on. And then when you get to book number 6, it moves to Kase-san and Yamada. And Kase-san and Yamada Volume 1 is the first volume where they are both in college for the whole thing. I think Kase-san and Cherry Blossoms, they are in college one of the semesters, but this is really where it starts to kick off kind of their college career. I'm really sad that I'm going to have to wait until May of next year to get more wholesome ladies. And I know that this prompt was probably wanting a 2020 release, but honestly, I don't know a whole lot about the books that are coming out in the second half of 2020. Most of the sapphic releases for this year that I've seen that I want are already out. I just don't have them yet. The next prompt is The Priory of the Orange Tree, the biggest book you have read. So I believe this is the biggest sapphic book that I've read page count wise. That is On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden. I absolutely adore this book. This is a sci-fi fantasy book. All of the characters in it are queer. There is one non-binary character, Elliot, who I would die for, but the rest of them are women, and so there's a lot of gay shit going on. There are 2 plot lines, and in one of the plot lines, it's kind of exploring the main character's relationship with her sort of childhood sweetheart. I don't want to give too much away, but this is really beautiful and really wonderful. Beautiful in the way that the story is beautiful, but also beautiful in the way that the artwork is beautiful. You can see the fish are kind of used as spaceships, so that's what that is. So there's that. They don't necessarily explain the mechanics of a lot of the stuff that they're doing so far as space travel and stuff, but it's still very, to me it's more like magical. I really loved it. I adored this book. It was one of my favorite things that I read last year. The next question we have is SAWKILL Girls, a scary book. I don't really read a ton of scary books, or I haven't recently, so this one was a little harder. But the book that I ended up choosing was The Gilda Stories. This is a sapphic vampire book. So that kind of element, vampires, is technically usually spooky, although I would say that the thing that's spooky about the book isn't the vampires. Our main character, who is known as the girl in the first part of the book, and then Gilda later on, she was enslaved and on the run, and kind of saved by these women who were vampires. The book spans over 200 years, so you get a look over time with what Gilda is doing and what Gilda is having to deal with. So it does look a whole lot at race in a number of different ways, as well as Gilda being black, One of the other vampires, Bird, is Native American. There are also a lot of different side characters who are black. And it also hits on different things around humanity. The way that some of the vampires are, including Gilda, they are trying to get blood in the most humane way possible. They try to give something back to the person that they're feeding from. However, not all vampires are like that, so those vampires end up being a scary piece of it. But also towards the end, you kind of see the lack of humanity in the humans, and that becomes kind of scary all by itself. There are also different themes regarding the environment that could also be seen as scary, I think. Overall, this was a really interesting book. This is a slightly older book. It was put out in 1991. Joel Gomez is said to have been kind of one of the pioneers or one of the contributors to Afrofuturism. So that's pretty cool. I would definitely recommend this. It was a super interesting read and definitely very gay. The final prompt is just to recommend a Sapphic book. For this prompt, I'm actually going to give you 3 of them. They all have some sort of trans representation in them as well. First, we have Upright Woman Wanted by Sarah Gailey. This is a queer Western, and the only things you really need to know about it is that it centers on anti-fascist queer librarians. That's it. Just go read it. It's really great. A ton of the characters are Sapphic, including our main character, Esther. There is also a polyamorous throuple that's in the background as well, which I found really cool. There's also a non-binary character in here, and the author is non-binary. So there's a lot of queer stuff happening with this book. The second book that I wanted to mention for this prompt is Nevada by Imogene Bini. The main character of this is a lesbian trans woman who is realizing that there are a lot of parts of her life that she's not really happy with. There are parts of herself that she doesn't really know. So this is sort of an adventure of self-discovery a little bit. This is one of those books that's extremely character-driven. It's a little bit weird, so it's not for everybody. I have likened it to Catcher in the Rye before, which is like a positive thing for me, but I know some people might not have the same relationship with that book, but those are the vibes that it gives me. I really, really love this book and its own voices. It actually comes from Topside Press, which is a publisher that prioritizes trans and other queer books. And the final book that I'm going to recommend for the Sapphic tag is The Seep by Hannah Porter. This is the best book that I've read all year. In the beginning of this book, there's a sort of alien invasion. And after this alien invasion, there is this huge influx of technology. One of the many things that they can do with this technology is that if you want to be reborn and raised again as a child, you can. The partner of our main character, Trina, decides to do that. So this book basically focuses on her coming to terms with this. There's a whole lot that goes on outside of it as well, but I don't really want to say too much because I don't want to spoil stuff. But it is really great. The writing is just beautiful, and so many different characters in it are Sapphic. The main character is a Sapphic trans woman. Obviously her wife would be Sapphic as well. And lots of other minority characters are queer. So that is it for the Sapphic book tag. If you have read any of these, please let me know what you thought about them down below. I am really bad at tagging people because I get nervous. So if you want to do this tag, definitely do it. If you need a reason to, you can say that I tagged you. But that is all that I have, so thank you so much for watching. Bye.